Hello again, Reverend here, and today I'm talking about the legato articulations that can be used in strummer mode. First up is the legato slide, then hammering on and pulling off, and sliding in, sliding out. But in strummer mode, and this part here, this second clip I'm going to talk about is going to be of real interest, because one of the things that makes a guitar part sound real is the ability to add a seventh or a ninth or a sus4 or whatever while you're bashing away on the chords and in the middle of a measure or pretty much wherever you want to. And this part here is going to show you how to do that. First up though, the legato slide. I'm going to play the piece as usual and then explain how it was achieved. Okay, up at the top here we have a C-sharp 5, which is the Strum Time. And the Strum Time can be controlled by velocity. I'm going to click it and you'll see up here it has a high velocity. So high velocity is going to give us a quick stroke of the pick across the strings. Next up, this is just a little intro slap. Not part of anything, but just to add some realism as we go in. And these notes here are the strum pattern, but entered using C4, D4, and E4. And this, if you look on your virtual keyboard, you will see on the tooltip that C4 is a downstroke, D4 is another kind of downstroke, then an upstroke. So then we're going down again, little tad of an up, and then a long sustained. This is actually a downstroke with the bass strings first, and then at the end of it, just a little muted stroke to terminate the sustain here. Very similar phrase, just slightly different strum. Listen for this piece because it's a cute little muted stroke right in the middle of the strum, very realistic. And then a similar phrase here. These notes are calling the chord from the chord bank. So this one starts us off. In the middle of this downstroke, another chord is called, and that's what gives us the slide, because as long as we have this sustain and this that sustain overlapping this instruction, then E0, which is the legato slide, will work. If these don't overlap, you won't get the legato slide. So once again, you see it here. You're going to hear a slide between this is the call for another chord, and in the middle of a downstroke that overlaps it, we will get a slide. So those are the two conditions. You must put in the E0 for legato slide, and you must have data that overlaps. Otherwise, there's nothing to slide to and slide from. Here again, another slide instruction, and this goes in and out. So let's listen for that, and then I'll play it again and show you what happens with the chords on the strummer display. Okay, now if I play that just one more time, but this time show you the strum display, what you're going to see here is this chord moving up to here, and it's going to be done in a slide. Now, no other virtual guitar can slide on multiple strings at once, so this is a pretty cool feature. Okay, and you might be wondering why you saw no change in the pattern. That's because back here, once again, this pattern was entered either manually or with a MIDI keyboard using the keys that can be that create downstrokes and upstrokes. So this is where the pattern is coming from. We're not calling it out of a pattern bank in this example, but chords are being called. Okay, that's about it for that one. next up, hammering on and pulling off in the strummer mode. Okay, in this file, we have up at the top here, C#5 is the strum time control, remember? So high velocity is giving us a quick stroke across the strings. Then C4 is a downstroke with bass strings first, followed by a little muted stroke to stop the sustaining. Here we have the call for the chords, and down here we have let me see, what is it? F0, of course. How silly of me. Okay, F0 is the hammering on and pulling off key switch, and here is the overlap that's required between the hammer on and the pull off. You can see in each case there's an overlap. This one's going to hammer on, this one's going to pull off, this one's going to do one of each right here. So let's just hear that with the little press at the end to terminate sustaining. Okay, now next up, very similar, but this is going to be of real interest to guitarists, because to anyone using ample guitars, because one thing that makes a guitar part sound real is the ability to put a seventh on top, or use a sus4, or add a ninth, while strumming away, while bashing chords, and in the middle of the measure. We don't just want a full measure of D and a full measure of C. We want to be able to add additions to the chord that spice up the strum and make the whole thing sound real. So once again, we're setting C#5 here with a high velocity. You can see that up here when you click it. But notice at the end, it's got a low velocity. What's really happening there is the strum time control is being told to give us a quick stroke across the strings all the way to here, and then it's being told to give us a slow stroke. And you'll notice that that gives us a broken chord, almost like just a very slow downstroke to finish off the piece with. These strums have been entered as before with C4, D4, and E4, and with crafty use of velocity and ups and downs. You see some nice little touches in here. You can get a pretty realistic strum. And you'll see, once I've played this through, I'll show you what happens on the Strummer diagram, so you can see how the additions were put in. Here's the call for the chords, this whole group. The call for chords happens between C2 and B2 right here. And the call for patterns starts with C and then uses black notes all the way up to there. So as you can see, there's no call for patterns except the manually entered ups and downs as we go through here. So look for that. And down here, this is the F0 key switch for hammering or pulling off. And it will hammer on or pull off depending on which note is higher, and as long as they overlap. So here we go. Okay, there was that broken chord at the end, and I'm just going to play it again so you can see what's happening on the Strummer display. What you're going to see here is a lot of different user-defined, or no, some of these are not. Some of that's a sus4. That's part of the types that are available. But you're going to see this chord change here, and that's how you do this. You basically define as many chords as will make your measure sound interesting, and you change them more often in the data. So here we can see he's got a change of chord here with a hammer on, change of chord with a hammer on, change of chord with a hammer on, and so on. So let's just look at the chords changing here, and particularly up in the diagram. Okay, and you probably noticed that it flipped from chord to chord down here, and it was obeying the pattern that the file contains. So this is the ups and downs of it all. These are the chords called, and the hammer-on key switch F0 gave us that feeling that the strum was continuous. There wasn't truly changing chords, but just putting an addition on the end. Okay, in this last clip, sliding in and sliding out, the thing to remember is that if the instruction occurs before the note, as it is, let's see, here we are, D sharp 0. If it occurs before, then you will get a slide up. If it occurs afterwards, as down here, then this will slide out when it's finished. When the sustain is over, you'll hear a slide out, because this instruction came after the beginning of this chord stroke. So let's hear that. Okay, so there was a slide in to begin with, a slide in to begin with up to this chord stroke, and then a slide out at the end. And once again, we're listening to C4, D4, E4, and you see some miscellaneous strokes there, muted strokes. And with that, I'm going to leave you. On behalf of Ample Sound, thanks for watching.